Thank you, everybody. Today is our Martyrs Intellectuals Day in Bangladesh. It's a very morning day for us, for the nation, and for the world. Bangladesh struggled 9 months to get the victory. Prior to that, 23 years as suppression happened by the Pakistani military and their imperialism forces. So Bangladesh became a Bangladesh in 1971, 16 December. To come to this stage, we have sacrificed, Bangladesh sacrificed millions people's blood. So in Bangla, it's called Dam diye kinechi Bangla, karo dame pawa noy, meaning we paid for it. We paid value for it. Bangladesh has not been achieved without any blood or any easy matter. So before or prior to 16 December, prior to 16 December, when once Pakistani military find out that they are not going to win the war, so they decided to kill our martyr intellectuals, our bright son, those who journalists, doctor, and so many intellectuals they have killed in 14 December. And today's discussion on the basis of genocide in 1971 and also our 14 December Martyrs Intellectuals Day. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Raihan Rashid and Barrister Thani Amir. Thank you for joining with us, and I really uh, admire and thanks from my wholehearted thank you for both of you. Prior to go to the discussion, let's have 1 minute silent to remember all those martyrs and uh, our intellectuals, those who gave lives for the country of Bangladesh. Just 1 minute to show them respect and show them our mourning. Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's go to Dr. Raihan Rashid. Let's elaborate the whole discussion about the genocide in 1971. And also, you can relate this to today's what they are calling as genocide and how we are here. Um, what is our failure and what is our loopholes that we made in previously that Bangladesh is today as here. Please, Dr. Raihan Rashid. Thank you.
Thank you, Bipul Bhai. Let me first clarify 2 points. I think there are 2 points to clarify. First, Bangladesh became Bangladesh not on 16 December. Actually, Bangladesh became Bangladesh on 26th of March. On 6th, and afterwards, it was an occupied country by the Pakistani forces, and we got liberated on the 16th. That's the first clarification. And the second clarification is yes, it's true. We commemorate the intelligentsia murders on the 14th of December, but uh, we must understand that the intelligentsia murders, they actually continued the whole 9 months. So it's not 14th December onwards or just that near the end of the war. Yes, they accelerated the killings near the end of the war, but the intelligentsia murders, those continued throughout the whole period. So those are the 2 points I thought we should clarify for your viewers. Uh, your question was uh, genocide, 1971 genocide. Uh, I think there isn't much to say apart from that. It is well It is well established that what took place in 1971, it falls directly under the definition of genocide. There is no doubt about that. Uh, I think their volumes have been written about it, and in the International Crimes Tribunal, there are, I think, more than 16 judgments of the International Crimes Tribunal where it has been clearly mentioned, declared, determined that what took place in 1971 definitely falls under the definition of genocide. Now, you mentioned 2024 because we see that politically there is a narrative to label that as genocide. So my understanding is, well, if you look at the definition, it doesn't fall under the definition of genocide because it doesn't satisfy the requirement of uh, intent. It doesn't satisfy the requirement of protected group, which has to be under attack for elimination, whether in part or whole or as a whole group. So it doesn't satisfy either of the two fundamental requirements. And then why they're calling it a genocide? Why they're trying to label it as a genocide? Um, I think my understanding or our understanding is what is happening here. We call it, the genocide scholars, we call it mirroring. Like they're trying to mirror 2024 and pit it against 1971. It is a very old tactic. It's a tactic of denial. It is a tactic of uh, 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 mostly denial tactic. It's a genocide denial tactic, like putting one genocide against another, putting one set of martyrs against another set of martyrs. So that is what is going on, and I think that is where the whole narrative came from, uh, like like trying to level to 2024 as a genocide. Uh, so that is my understanding, or maybe Barrister Tania Amir is here, and I think she would be able to elaborate a little bit more. That's my understanding. Would you agree, Tania?
Sure. I think first thing that like to say that from the bottom of my heart, I really want to express my gratitude to those in 1971, the martyrs, the freedom fighters, and I know most of our nations, in fact, everyone who is a Bangladeshi, Bengali, shares this sentiment. And this is something, there's no doubt about that. Second issue that we want to bring forward is that that Pakistan has unleashed on the night of 25th March an unjust and treacherous war against the unarmed civilian people of Bangladesh. So the war was not started by us. And why did they do that? Because there was a free and fair election. And by virtue of this election, Pakistan was going to frame a constitution. From the time that the British Independence Act was enacted by the British Parliament, which created two independent dominions, not states, not countries, not republics, two independent dominions. And these dominions have special meaning. Now, in India, what happened is that there was an independent government led by Nehru, and Gandhiji was there. And Mountbatten continued to be the Governor General. In Pakistan, that did not happen. Jinnah, who is supposed to be the founder of Pakistan, became the Governor General of the British King. So therefore, I raise the question whether Pakistan ever became an independent state. It was certainly not a republic. So Jinnah had two flags. He carried two flags. One was the Governor General of the British King, and the second flag was that of Pakistan. Now, in India, they had a constitution within 2 years, and after Mountbatten, there was a ceremonial Governor General, and that system stopped. India became an independent, sovereign republic, and it chose to become a member of the Commonwealth as a republic. But Pakistan continued the system of Governor General till 1958. And the Governor General often dismantled the government of Pakistan. So, if you like, the hierarchy was from the King of England. So, where was this independent state? If you ask me, I don't see it. So, Pakistan just remained a territory that was governed by the barrel of a gun. There was no full constitution of Pakistan. There was a debate whether it will be an Islamic republic or a full-fledged constitution. And then Ayub Khan took over. Again, he introduced by himself basic democracy, which was top-down, imposed upon the people, and through the barrel of the gun. So the people had never any say in the manner in which the government of the country is going to be governed. There was never any democracy. So now it begs the question, and this is something we don't often articulate in our history. Pakistan, for the first time, under General Yahya Khan, held a free and fair election. They underestimated. They thought that there will not be any landslide from East Bengal. But I think they were not. It was so obvious to me, given the sheer demography. But they expected that East Bengal, Muslim League and other parties will take seats, but they didn't. So once the East Bengalis, led by Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and the only party of East Bengal at the time was Awami League, there was no other party. So there was a 6-point demand, and it was abundantly clear that the mandate and the manifesto of the party was that, yes, if we come to power, if we win, we will formulate a constitution based on the 6-point demand. There was no secret about this, right? So the 6-point demand was laid out, articulated. I don't think we have time to go through that, but I'd invite your viewers, don't just utter 6-point, understand what they were. And that decentralization, devolution, authority, because all the wealth was from East Pakistan. Gold dust was jute. So jute was earning a lot of foreign currency. In East Bengal, we were not getting our fair share. It was all going to West Pakistan. In fact, when the coronation happened of Queen Elizabeth, a huge amount of homage was paid to Queen Elizabeth. And the entourage from West Pakistan was huge because they had the governor generalship, you see. So the wealth went from East Pakistan. And East Pakistan was impoverished and was sucked. The blood was sucked out of East Pakistan. Not just one capital from Karachi, Lahore, they were building one capital after another. And then there was discrimination in terms of appointment, both to the civil service, the military bureaucracy, the civil bureaucracy. Bengalis, despite the fact we are known for our intellect, we were not getting chances. And the country was ruled by oligarchs, a number of families only, yeah? Often when I hear Pakistanis and I see Pakistani writings, I find it disturbing. They call it elites. It's not elites, because when there's fair competition, if you come up to the fair competition, then you can begin to say elites. It was a systemic oppression, systemic discrimination, and it was an oligarch, right, that was ruling Pakistan, where Bengalis were not part of it. Now, given that backdrop, out of 169 seats, Awami League won 167 seats, an absolute landslide victory. Now, what happens then? What is there to negotiate? I would humbly submit that there were in Bhutto who won 80 seats out of 300 in the national. There was the national seats and the provincial seats. He came up with this weird theory that either hum udhar tum. I don't speak Urdu very much, but this much I've understood, that in West Pakistan, I'm going to be the prime minister. In East Pakistan, Mujib, you're going to be the prime minister. That's not how democracy works. It was a universal suffrage, adult franchise, one person, one vote, irrespective of your religion or your gender. So somehow my vote, of course, I was not at the age of voting. I don't mean me personally, but the vote of East Bengalis were somehow not less than the vote of West Pakistanis. So in the theory of adult franchise, one person, one vote meant that Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman would form the government of entire Pakistan. They had a problem with that. The so-called elites in their psyche, a perverted psyche, could never contemplate that a Bengali will lead Pakistan. That's where the problem was. And Bhutto kept saying, well, we'll have a confederation, you'll be there, I'll be there. The elections were not fought on the basis of a confederation. Yes, that is something that would evolve once the constitution is promulgated. And based on 6-point program, the 6-point demand, the people gave the mandate to form a constitution. Accordingly, from Bangladesh's side, the East Bengal, we gave a draft constitution. And they were mincing their words, and they were being very treacherous and untruthful, saying we're going to negotiate this because, once you go into parliament, and mind you, the parliament we have in Dhaka at Kamal Atatürk Avenue, that was never used. And whether that, building is jinxed or not, I don't know. That building has never really functioned the way how it is supposed to function. That's a different story. I'm digressing. Going back to this, that this parliament, the government-elect, the Pakistani junta is supposed to hand over power. What's there to talk about? What's there to negotiate? If Bhutto's formula was accepted by our leaders, what would that mean? That somehow we in East Bengal, our blood is thinner than theirs, or our vote is less than theirs? It's not on the basis of universal adult franchise. One person, one vote. Full stop. There's nothing to talk about. There's nothing to negotiate. Despite that, perhaps our leaders were trying to avoid bloodshed and, continue the parley, because there was a nerve game going on at the time. Who is going to give away first? Are we going to become secessionist? Are we going to declare independence? And before Bangladesh, no other nation, no other group of people have been successfully able to give themselves an independence while they're within a framework of an existing nation. So this hasn't happened. So our leaders were playing it very, very, very cautiously. Despite all the provocation, they didn't want to make the first strike. You see, even 7th March speech, had Bangabandhu declared independence then he'd be a secessionist. Today, there would not be Bangladesh. The machine guns were pointed. Bengalis would have been massacred at the racecourse Maidan. It was a very carefully couched speech, and it was conditional. Should there be one more bullet, should there be any more bloodshed, only then. You ghare ghare durga kore tulo, create a fortress in every establishment and fight the enemy, should there be a single bullet. Yes, this is how it was couched, very beautifully, very, very well balanced. So we were continuing, and then while in the name of negotiation, on 1st of March, Yahya postponed this roundtable negotiations indefinitely. And that's when the young people like my father, who was only 25 at the time, they've already dreamt of independence. Once you dream it, how do you undo it? How do you undream it? It's not possible. The flags of Bangladesh were flying. But Bangabandhu, in his statesmanship, perhaps was still trying to negotiate to stop the bloodshed. Yes? So then what happened is that while in the name of these negotiations, Kalurghat in Chittagong, they were bringing in ammunitions, they were bringing in soldiers, they were bringing in armies, because they had this conspiracy, a sinister conspiracy, which was meticulously planned. I use this word because this sentence is going around like viral. Meticulously planned. This conspiracy to, just within 21 days, 3 to 4 weeks, they'll just massacre Bengalis and teach us a lesson. Why did we dream of democracy? Why are we dreaming of equality? Don't we know where our place is? And these so-called elites, are the rulers, and we have to bow down to them, kowtow to them. That was a very perverse psyche, and some of that psyche is still operating, and we need to be very aware of that. And part of this psyche comes from the fact that somehow they consider themselves as more pure Muslim, and they're Islamist, whereas the Islam that we know in Bengal is more inclusive. It's from Sufis, it's from saints, where we understand Islam, which is Islam of peace and Islam of equality, whereas the so-called elite rulers, the oligarchs, thought that no, Islam is very orthodox, and you have to be a Puritan, and you cannot see left, right, and you cannot be inclusive. You have to hate everyone else who are non-Muslims. Along with that, the Islam and our Bengali culture, which is very inclusive, just as in the Bengali culture, we celebrate New Year's, we celebrate spring festivities, Bashant Utsav, Pohela Boishakh, Pitha Utsav, the new harvest. Just as, we have 6 seasons in Bangladesh. Just as we embrace and celebrate all the seasons, we celebrate and embrace all people of the world of different color, caste, religion, irrespective of their religious persuasion. And to a degree, we believe in equality of men and women. Not enough. We still have a long way to go, but much more so than West Pakistanis. I remember my mothers and my aunts in the 60s, they would go out to parties, and our women were perhaps wearing a simple cotton sari with a choti, with the put their hair up, their long hair up with the jasmine garland, maybe a light 60s pink shaded lipstick, and wear simple pearls. And in the parties, you might have the ladies from the so-called elites who are like glitter boxes, with shiny diamonds and jewelries and a lot of that. And we had what is known as Bengali inverse snobbery. Somehow, they felt they were the elites, but the Bengalis would sort of feel that they were a bit crass, bit overdoing themselves, not sophisticated. So the inverse snobbery of Bengalis was that, we were much more intellectuals. We loved our, philosophy and poetry. Perhaps we didn't have the money, but we had the class and we had the sophistication. Yes? So that tension, one could understand, one was seeing that. So that translated to the political tension, and as they were, in a treacherous manner, they were gathering all these ammunitions and soldiers. And what happened on 25th night, as Yahya left Dhaka, there was a big noise. And that was a signal to unleash Operation Searchlight, which was just indiscriminately killing the skies of Dhaka. It was like fireworks, as we see in Christmas or New Year's, except they were not benign. They were real fire. Women, children, men, irrespective of their religious discrimination, were just flattened. The shanties, the bastis, in different areas, in Raiba, it was just burning. And this was unleashed because a group of people wanted democracy, and they earned it. They had the mandate to form their own government, own constitution. Now this, if you like, before Bangladesh, Biafra example was very recent. They were considered cessationist. The world didn't even look, and they were just massacred. East Rhodesia is another example. So now, how did we do it? And that's the story that I'm very happy to share with you today. And that story is that our right of self-determination by the elected representatives. there was already an election to give ourselves a constitution. So soon after the Operation Searchlight, as it was unleashed, massacre, genocide was ongoing. Bangabandhu, before he was kidnapped, I wouldn't even say he's arrested, he was kidnapped. He declared independence on 26 March. Just when you declare independence doesn't mean that there's a republic, there's a state, there's a nation, there's a country. It didn't happen there and then. It took another 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks' time, 10th of April, 1971, what we have is the Proclamation of Independence. This is our first constitution. This is the first instrument by virtue of which Bangladesh became a sovereign nation. Bangladesh emerged and we proclaimed our independence by saying the will of the people is supreme. So the elected representatives got together, had mutual consultation, and converted themselves into a constituent assembly. And once they have done that, they have ratified the declaration given by Bangabandhu on 26 March. And once they ratified that, they said, we are duty-bound and honor-bound to uphold the will of the people. And the people have given us the mandate to form a constitution, which we are not able to do within the framework of Pakistan. So then they declared Bangladesh as a sovereign People's Republic of Bangladesh. The word peoples is very significant here. People in normal English, people is a plural for person. Why does it say peoples? People's Republic. It's very significant because in international law, peoples mean different groups of people. So it's not only for Muslims. It's for Bengalis, and then there were other groups who also Bangla was not their language. So as I said, it reflects our mindset of being inclusive. All those peoples, all different groups who lived in what is known as the territory of Bangladesh. It's for everyone. So it's People's Republic of Bangladesh. In the same spirit of us being inclusive. So this we have done by exercising our right of self-determination. In our Proclamation of Independence, these words are there. And who can exercise their right of self-determination? Only through the elected representatives. So Tom, Dick, and Harry cannot come and declare independence. Who has the mandate to declare independence? The leader of the elected representatives. And who was that? The undisputed leader of 75 million people, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, which is there in our Proclamation of Independence. So he declared independence. The elected representatives got together, given the circumstances of genocide that is going on, yet they have the mandate of the people and they're honor-bound. As they're honor-bound, they convert themselves into a constituent assembly and declare unilaterally the republic, the birth of a nation, the utterance of the birth of the nation. And our birth, this is our birth certificate, you can call it that also, 10th of April, the instrument, 1971. It's our birth certificate. It's also our first constitution. By virtue of that, we also form a government. And our birth cry is that of human rights. Our birth cry is that of our exercising our right, which is recognized under the Civil and Political Rights Instrument of the Human Rights Charters.
Covenant.
So it's one of the 3 covenants. Also, social and cultural right also recognizes this. So it's the cultural, social, and the political right that we have exercised. This is known as UDI, Unilateral Declaration of Independence. Before Bangladesh, no one else could do it and have not done it successfully. Look at Palestine to date. They don't have a state. So this UDI, whenever, as I said, East Rhodesia, Biafra, when they tried to do it, they were called secessionist, breakaway faction, treason. And under international law, it was illegal. No one turned around to protect them in any way whatsoever. But for Bangladesh, we were successful. Unilateral Declaration of Independence, we have successfully exercised our right. In recent times, Kosovo did the same. And Kosovo's case went to the UNGA, United Nations General Assembly. And the United Nations General Assembly referred that to the International Court, whether Kosovo's unilateral declaration of independence is valid or not. And I am so very proud. You know what the International Court in its judgment, it said? It said that Kosovo's future is subject to what extent they're compliant with the international standard of UDI. And they referred to the Proclamation of Independence of Bangladesh, 10th April 1972. So our instrument is the model law in the world. It's against that yardstick that every other country who wants to exercise their right of self-determination is judged. So Bangladesh, we have also contributed to international law. And I'm extremely proud, just as I'm sure all of you are, that my father, Barrister Amir Islam, drafted that. He was a young barrister, only 35 years old at the time. But, he was perhaps in his subconscious mind writing it all his life, because he was following this when he was studying in the UK. He was a young barrister here, and he was following these covenants very, very carefully, how it was being negotiated. And they had an organization here called Uttoshuri, and they brought out a publication called Unhappy East Pakistan. And he's going around saying to his colleagues and friends, it's possible, because they decided then that martial law is no law, because he had become the first Bengali who defeated Leghari, who was then become the president of Pakistan. And by defeating Leghari, he became the first Bengali president of Pakistan's Student Federation. And because of their activities and because of their dream for democracy and equality, the Pakistan authorities considered him to be problematic, and his passport was expounded a number of times. So this treason, expounding passport, every Bangladeshi, whoever was dreaming and working for democracy and independence, were persecuted. And that's the cases we are also seeing now, and I'll make the connection. Rashtradrohi, treason, that case, it's resurrected again in Bangladesh. We're seeing that section being used again. So during that time, he was following these negotiations of civil and political rights and economic and cultural rights. And he was convinced that through this instrument, there could be independence without becoming secessionist. So although he wrote it on the night of 10th of April, but in his subconscious mind, I think he was writing it forever. So this is how Bangladesh was born. And so in order to, our constitution is not so rigid. You can amend the constitution. And in order to amend the constitution, 2/3 majority of parliament is necessary. So now it begs the question, the present initiative by the present government, which has formed a constitutional committee to do away with the constitution or amend the constitution, make that sort of recommendation, that is actually rather absurd from a constitutional perspective. First of all, this government has no mandate to amend or change the constitution. In fact, no executive has any mandate to do that. No executive organ of the government can do that. Only parliament can do that. And parliament has been dissolved, whatever term you want to use. There is no parliament. So no government, no executive organ of the republic can ever do anything like this. So it's absurd. It's an oxymoron. It's ultra virus. It's absolutely not possible. Now, something that the government itself cannot do, how does it delegate that authority to a group of people? Incidentally, there's not even a single constitutional expert in that group. There's no constitutional expert there. No not even regular legal practitioners are there, right? And one of them who is heading this committee is not even, he's a citizen of US. And he represents the interests of North Atlantic Alliance, NATO, number of different things. So, so now it begs the question that by way of a subordinate executive office order, how do you touch the highest law of the Republic? It's not possible. Now, I connect this with when the Proclamation of Independence, the will of the people is supreme. Please remember this. The will of the people is supreme. And when we got our full constitution, so this was the first constitution, the first law that was passed by presidential order was the Laws Continuation Order. And that is still in our statute book. Many laws that were passed by virtue of the Proclamation of Independence are in our statute book. And the Laws Continuation Order will always be in our statute book, because when you have a new nation, you don't overnight have new set of laws. So the Laws Continuation Order was passed subject to the Proclamation of Independence, where it is repugnant to the Proclamation of Independence and the statehood of Bangladesh. To that extent, it's void. Subject to that, the Laws Continuation Order. So all power of the republic belongs to the people. And that is what we mean by a republic. A republic, where the owner of the republic are the people. So people are not the source of power. People are the owners of sovereignty. So we deconstructed sovereignty in a big way. So, in the old days, you have the monarchies, the kings, the queens, the caliphs. They ruled through divine power. The power was divine. And they were God's representative on earth. That gave them the mandate, and through the power of the sword, from force, from coercion. Yes, brute power. So that was the state, pre-constitutional, pre-modern nation-state concept. This is how we had monarchies. And then there was a huge quarrel, especially in the Christian world, in Europe in particular. So once the monarchs, the kings and queens were ruling with their divine power and divine prerogative, then the quarrel was that, well, if you have divine power to rule, why do you need to tax the people? Why do you need money from the people? Every time you go to war and you plunder, you tax the common people. But if you're going to tax the people, then there's going to be representation. So no representation, no tax. So we had lawyers like Koch, many activists at the time. And forgive me, I'm condensing hundreds of years of history in just one sentence. In that quarrel, in that fight, Parliament won. Where I'm in the UK, where Rahan is. And Parliament became sovereign. So all power, sovereign power, belongs to Parliament. Countries like Bangladesh, India, America, with this written constitution, sovereignty does not belong to even Parliament. Sovereignty belongs to the people. We, the people. All power of the Republic belongs to us. So as a solemn expression of the will of the people, you see that word again, will of the people, as a solemn expression of the will of the people, has been expressed in this document known as the Constitution. So the sovereign power of the people has been expressed through this Constitution as to how that sovereign power is to be exercised. Hence, the Constitution is the supreme law of the Republic. Any other law which is inconsistent with the Constitution is therefore automatically void.
Let me
right?
interrupt for a minute, Tanyapa.
Yes.
Mr. Tanyamid. Let me go back to. Please hold your thought, dear Tanyapa. Go back to Raihan Rashid regarding why we are here, why Bangladesh is in that stage today after 53 years or 54 years, as you say. Why those who never won against us, we got the victory, we got Bangladesh, and after that, why these killers are in power right now in Bangladesh? How that happened? What was our lackings? Let's self-criticize. If it is not, I mean, we should self-criticize. I think if not, if it is not too late, we need to find out why and what was our mistakes and wrongdoings that we had done previously, that these killers are in power right now. It's total, I mean, daylight crystal clear that they're the 1971 genocide killer, and this is, everybody knows. I mean, if you see the video of what is his name, Kader Molla's Milad Mahfil, and they are attending, what is it, Hasnat Abdullah and Saji Salom, hugging, his name was, what was his name, hugging his son, Rajakar's son, and talking to them, crying with them. That means they're all are Rajakars right now in power of Bangladesh. And they were disputing and questioning about our independence, our victory, why we're here today, why we have to face this. Um, I mean, you both
Yeah.
can please narrate that.
It's a very good question, actually. You know what? Uh, I have been thinking about it a lot. I think many of us are pondering about it for the last few months. Uh, Now, where are we? We are actually where we are. It is what I call a three genocide problem. So the first genocide is 1971, which was a well-established genocide. But now we find ourselves in a position where we can see that there are attempts of complete revision of history of that genocide. So that is the first genocide. The second genocide, as I already mentioned, like the 2024, month of July incident, some people are trying to label it as a genocide, which is not a genocide. It is a mischaracterized genocide. And the third genocide of the three genocide problem is what have been doing since then. Since then, I mean since August, since the fall of the previous regime. Because according to many human rights groups, particularly, for example, the Lemkin Institute, it characterized uh, the incidents of post-August as genocide. They found that there are precursors to genocide. Many signs and many symptoms are there of genocide, which is, of course, they are not claiming it is a full-blown genocide, but it has many characteristics. So we find ourselves in a position there where there are now we are discussing three genocides. One, which is facing revision, two, which is mischaracterized, and the third, the genocide that is happening since August. What we see is a complete denial, like a complete denial, like the current regime. They're just claiming that nothing like that is happening. Their position is one of denial. So this is the situation we find ourselves. Then why? Uh, I'm sure you have heard that it has been said many times that Awami League, when it was in power, it overdid. It is I mean, there is an accusation that Awami League used to overdo 1971, and supposedly that have annoyed the nation. Now, our position, or my position, of the many of the activists are actually we think that Awami League didn't practice 1971 enough. Actually, it should have done more. If I pinpoint like what we didn't do that brought us in today's situation, let's try to pinpoint. You see, when 2010, the trial of the war criminals started, that was a step in the right direction. It was a monumental task. It was a gigantic task, but the government, it did undertake that task. And so, but afterwards, what happened? After the first few judgments, after the first few trials, what was the next step of the trial? The next step of the trial, it had to be. the global genocide recognition movement or the universal genocide recognition movement. I think that was something which didn't get enough patronage from the government, because every genocide recognition campaign has to be patronized by the home government. In our case, that didn't happen. There were a lot of shortcomings. Although many activist groups, civil society groups, they tried on their own, but they found themselves high and dry, like not without sufficient support at the international stage from their home government, from our home government. So that is one, neglecting the genocide recognition campaign. I think that is what brought us here. That is one reason. Second, I think because you see, the last government, Awami League, it had been in power for the last 16 years. And in that 16 years, I think it had a lot of opportunity for nation building in the spirit of 1971. I think there were failures, obviously, of nation building. Or why else would we see a young generation there chanting slogans like they're Rajakars? Because how could they? There must have been something wrong in their education and the nation building process. So I think that is one another reason. There must have been some failure of nation building. And if you look at some of the glaring, I would say glaring oversights, if you see at the Premium Genocide Research Center in Dhaka University, that the Center for Genocide Studies, if you look at, it was headed by a person whose own views about Bangladesh genocide was not very clear. Uh, we have written about it, activists have written about it, uh, and our writings were critiquing his writings, the person who actually led that center. So our view was his views on genocide, Bangladesh genocide in particular, was not very clear. And incidentally, that person was also, uh, surprise, surprise, he was also appointed as the main consultant of the foreign ministry to advise on the genocide recognition campaign. So, so it is pretty obvious or pretty predictable what is going to be the outcome. And another thing is, as I said, that a genocide recognition campaign, it has to be backed by the government. So which wing of the government is going to play the major role internationally? Obviously, it has to be the foreign ministry. But what we have seen, the two successive foreign ministers of our country, if we look at their statements, I don't think they had any clue about what the genocide recognition campaign meant. I don't want to let me share one quote. I think I can't resist that temptation. For example, one foreign minister, he once gave a statement that we have to be very careful about genocide recognition campaign. It is his quotation, his statement, that we have to be very careful about genocide recognition campaign because we do not have sufficient evidence. That was his statement. So obviously he didn't follow the history, he didn't follow the judgments of the ICT, International Crimes Tribunal. So that was kind of person who was leading a ministry, and whose ministry was supposed to lead the international genocide recognition campaign. So we can assume the results. I think another reason what brought us today here is, you see, when we talk about 1971, we only discuss uh, uh, the stories, or we only discuss the stories of heroism, but we do not actually discuss about the lessons of genocide. I think that was when the whole 1971 discourse and the whole discussions always surrounded, was always, I think it was occupied by discussions on heroism or loss. But there is also but our discussions never centered around the lessons of genocide. So as a nation, we failed uh, we failed to discuss what we learned from 1971 genocide. So because that learning was important, because that learning would have been the building block of nation building. So there we failed. Those are the fews I think we can I can think of. I'm sure there are many more. And it is also time actually for us to do some soul searching, because what brought us here, uh, because I think if you ask anyone even 1 year ago, no one could have thought about a word like, no one could have even imagined a word like a reset button, a phrase like that. And it's such a ridiculous phrase. But now we are in this reality. Now we are living it. So I think some level of soul searching is necessary. Why? So that we do not make the same mistake again. Because this time around we have to do it right. Because 1971, I think Tani Appa said that when she was giving her tribute to the martyrs of 1971, in particular the intelligentsia martyrs, because we are here today because of them. The whole nation is here today because of them. Whatever we are here, whatever we are doing, whatever that we have achieved as individual or as a collective, it is because of their sacrifice. Uh, so I think we owe it to them as well. Uh, so in short, that is my response. We need to do it right, and first, and that doing it right would start with detecting what we did wrong before.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raihan. Tanyapa, if I go back to you, would you please elaborate the eternity clause of 142.7b in our constitution? If you, I know they are trying to change the constitution, and how they would do all these things in regards of where Article 142.7b is present.
Before, uh, going going into that, I think I question their authority to begin with. So I don't want to go into each article. That will be the second tier of defense. But the first question is, what is what I invite you to focus upon? Yeah. So this committee. Hello.
Yeah, I'm hearing.
Yeah, we can
I don't
hear
know
you.
what
We can
happened.
hear. Yeah,
Can you see me?
yeah, we can see
Yes.
you.
I can't see you. Okay, so this committee, whether they at all have any mandate, as I said, by way of a subordinate office order, can there be at all a committee set up to touch the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the Republic, which is the highest law, and as a solemn expression of the will of the people? So this committee itself, under 102, one can challenge by way of a quo warranto that under what authority are they holding this office? So forget about the text of the articles of the Constitution. It's sacrosanct. They cannot touch it. Only an elected members of Parliament, the next Parliament, with two-third majority, can change it. Now, even if they give recommendation, the question is recommendation to whom? Because this government has no mandate to do that either. No executive can do that. So, and we have this principle of, if you like, the every parliament is independent. So no past parliament or no other authority can bind the hands of the future parliament. So what the future parliament will do, it's up to them. We cannot have discussions about it now. Political parties can have their manifesto and they can seek votes of the people that what they may or may not do once they get into office. But how do you bind the hands of the future parliament? That's absolutely impossible. That is the independence of the House. It's known as the House of the Nation. So the debate at the moment, we shouldn't be going into the debate of individual articles of the Constitution. The first question is that who are they? As I said, it's a quo warranto case, is an apt case to challenge under what authority they're holding that office. That's ultra vires and void. In the eye of law, that office doesn't exist. So if it doesn't exist, the question of them changing or amending the Constitution or throwing away the Constitution doesn't arise. And if anyone is trying to throw away the Constitution, the Republic, with something else, that is treason. I have seen in social media, people, this Hizb ut-Tahrir Constitution going around, a
Yeah.
draft of it. Yeah, that is treason. And my question is that why is the government sitting idle and twiddling their thumb and doing nothing about that? It's a banned organization. They're trying to overthrow the republic. In other words, we are the owners of the republic. So they're trying to throw away the owners, bring a caliphate of some sort, who will have their source of power from divine sources and put themselves in the seat of God. So criticizing them would mean criticizing God. So basically, take away the power from the people. So they're totally against the concept of democracy. So they're trying to go back to the Dark Ages, what Christianity has gone through in Europe. So in the old days, just where the Christian kings ruled. So Islam, of course, came later. The religion is after Christianity. So perhaps these people are going through the same curve. Whereas the political Islam was unknown to most Bangladeshis and most Muslims around the world. We understand that as a religion of peace. And it is something most people believe that believe in Almighty, and the confusion that these people try and create is between the temporal realm and the spiritual realm. In the spiritual realm, most people believe in a power, a higher power. But in the temporal realm, when we talk about governance and people who will serve the people and day-to-day running of the government, people in Bangladesh believe that they are accountable to the general public at large, because the republic belongs to the people. So these people try and create this confusion of a temporal world and the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, most people make that distinction, which is untouchable, which is not tangible. In the spiritual world, most people in Bangladesh believe in a higher authority, higher power. But in the world of governance, in the tangible world, people who are going to be elected must be accountable to the people. So there's no two ways about that. Your other question about recognition of genocide. Incidentally, I can't see any of you. I've lost the vision. I'm glad you can see me. In addition to what Raihan said, I'd like to invite everyone to the basic primary document. So most countries around the world have already recognized Bangladesh as a sovereign republic. And we belong as a member of the family of nation, pledging our allegiance to the Charter of United Nations. Now, again, I go back to the Proclamation of Independence. Most countries recognized us based on our first instrument. And what does that instrument say, if I may read out? Whereas in the conduct of a ruthless and savage war, the Pakistan authorities committed and are still continuously committing numerous acts of genocide and unprecedented torture, amongst others, on the civilian and unarmed people of Bangladesh. And whereas the Pakistan government, by levying an unjust war and committing genocide, and by other repressive measures, made it impossible for the elected representatives of the people to meet and frame a constitution and give themselves a constitution. The reason I'm reading these two paragraphs, not once, 2 to 3 times the word genocide is there. So most countries have already recognized Bangladesh as a sovereign country. So how is it that they don't recognize genocide? That's how Bangladesh was born. So I would go back and remind these countries, our foreign ministries should be doing the same. That, listen, look at this. You have recognized us based on our proclamation of independence. This is how we came into existence. So by operation of law, automatically, you have acknowledged that there was genocide. There's just no two ways about it. You asked the other question, people, that how did we end up in this situation? You know something? I'm not surprised. I saw it coming for a decade now. Because all our investments at the national level was appeasement And if you like, this appeasement policy that the successive governments have continued has resulted in this, and most importantly, impunity, a culture of impunity. This impunity culture started when we did not try the 195 POWs who had committed genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, raped and pillaged Bangladesh, a rape of a nation, one of the most atrocious events in the history of the world. We were the world's biggest refugee and most successful repatriation, which shows that people came back because there was a war going on, genocide going on, and it was not a civil war, which Pakistan propaganda tried to prove. So we didn't try the 195. And why not? Why the hell not? It is our duty, both under domestic law and international law, and our ethical duty. You know, a lot of the survivors, both the victims and the perpetrators, there's a book out a few years ago where someone interviewed those perpetrators who had committed these atrocities in Pakistan. Some, they're still alive. You know, they're crying out for help. They want some form of an atonement. Had there been this trial, this would have been their opportunity to do so. They're not mentally okay. A lot of them are seeking a proper forum where they can confess a lot of these atrocities before they depart from this planet. That is also there. So rule of law and stopping this impunity culture is very, very important. So we didn't try them. Bhutto, the post-Simla and Simla tripartite agreement and post-Simla, Pakistan undertook to try them, which they never did. So there was a Hamudur Rahman report where there's already admission of a lot of the atrocities. Although the real Hamudur Rahman report was never made public, but it's high time, I think, they're right-thinking Pakistanis who also would like to see that come out. Look at what's happening in Pakistan today. Had there been a proper transition of power, Pakistan would have seen the light of democracy in their own country and perhaps would not disintegrate in the manner in which they're proceeding. So rule of law and stopping the culture of impunity is important for everyone. So in 1973, we had this International Crimes Tribunal Act, but it was not supposed to be a showpiece, you know, to be kept in drawing rooms and libraries. It was meant to be used. It had to be invoked, which didn't happen in 1972, 1973. And then the Dala line, under that, there were many prosecutions that were underway. A lot of these perpetrators were behind bars. And then for no apparent reason, which one can comprehend from a perspective of rule of law perspective, it was just stopped overnight. And they were released. So the other, under the collaborators Dala line, the prosecutions that were going on, we stopped them. So this was kind of an indemnity and granting impunity to the offenders. And there was no justice. There was no justice. Then again, in 1975, again, there were assassination, and Bangabandhu, with all his most of his family members and many others, assassinated, killed. Again, there was actually this time we went a few steps further. We actually had an indemnity ordinance whereby we said no trial. That is no law. You cannot have a law saying that the law of the land will not be enforced. That cannot be a law. After many years, when Awami League government was in power the first time, they repealed that, and the then law minister was um, Mr. Motin Khosru. I have a lot of respect for him. God bless him, wherever he may be. And at that time, I had a quarrel with him. I said, no way you can repeal this, because repeal is not the right word. It was never a law to begin with. It cannot be a law. So it should be declared void ab initio, a declaration by the parliament that the law is void. It was never a law. So he said, no, 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 how can this be? We already have a draft. We're going through parliament. How can I stop this? It'll not look right, so on and so forth. So after a lot of insistence, I managed to get a word in the content of that legislation, that it was never a law to begin with, although the title says repeal. But with due respect, it's not a repeal. So the content says something else.
Thank you, Tanya, for bringing. So I
And
would like.
just to round off, the last impunity is that this government, and that's what I want to highlight, has again introduced an impunity culture by introducing this executive office order that there is indemnity against the killings that took place from 5th to 8th.
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
allowed
And
indemnity.
yeah, and most of the killings took place then. So I want to now ask you and your audience the question: this so-called genocide trial that the government is purporting to do, how can they do a genocide trial when they have an impunity and an indemnity that no trial or no investigation can take place in respect of the majority of the killings that took place? So
True.
is that absolute, contradiction in
Actually,
terms?
that
It's a
was the
must.
next question I was going to ask to Dr. Raihan Rashid. And I think one of the viewer also asked that question: how you put that 16 July to, or 15 July to 8th of August killing in ICC or ICT in Bangladesh. How that fit into that bucket? How that fit into that ICT? Is it legal? Is it legitimate? Does it have any background? Can you? Right.
Technically, uh, the 1973 International Crimes Tribunals Act, uh, the way the law was drafted, it was we call it temporal jurisdiction, like it is the time limit. So, so the way it was drafted and the way it was its jurisdiction was worded, it says that this act can try anything before and after 1973. So before means obviously 1973 Act was meant by before it meant it was referring to 1971 crimes, and by after, which means afterwards. So technically, yes, 1973 Act, it does cover temporarily the current incidents, like since 1973, whatever. You can try any incident of any alleged incident of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, crimes of aggression, or any violation of under international law. You can try there. That's according to the law. So technically, yes. But that brings us back to that question: the 1970, the July incidents, do they fall under the fall as one, like, can you describe them as an international crime? So in my view, genocide, we already discussed, it doesn't definitely. Um, in terms of like, if we are whether they fall under the crimes against humanity, so that's a different thing, because the way the current law is drafted, the threshold is very high. So uh, even even to allege that there has been crimes against humanity, I think the prosecution team, they will have to show enormous amount of evidence to that. I do not know what they're going to argue, so I cannot comment on that. My understanding is yes, technically they can, but it would be a very difficult task. But in terms of genocide, no, there is no way they can stretch the definition that to fall it under the definition of genocide. But your question was particularly about, was it about the,
ICT. Does it fit into ICT?
well, I answered that.
It
Yeah,
does, yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah,
Because
go ahead.
there's another, and Rahan has already addressed that, but there's another point which we need to address, and that is the alleged accused before the ICT. Against them, there are already a few hundred cases for murder.
Every single individual, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's also funny.
Right. So now
And
you cannot.
Sakib Al Hassan, he was playing cricket in Canada and he got murder case.
Yeah.
yeah. He did as well. Yeah, he
So
got one.
let's focus on the ICT accused. Okay, so people who are accused under the ICT Act for genocide, right? Please follow what I'm saying. Those individuals have already been charged with, a few hundred murder cases already. Yes? So in the same country, you cannot be trying people for murder individually and genocide at the same time. That's an
Good point.
abuse of the process of the
Very
law.
good. Yeah, that's I
Yes?
would like to know exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolute abuse of the process of law.
Mhm.
If at all they can go through this threshold, then I think I will argue about the merit, if at all the case falls within the framework of the ICT. So that is the first threshold they have to go through. And there've already been investigation on both fronts. How can you have parallel investigation, both for umpteen number of murder and genocide all at the same time? That is an absolute abuse of the process of the law, right? So that is what we are seeing, and it's becoming almost farcical. The legal system is almost becoming farcical. The criminal cases that they have filed against individuals, as I say, I believe in justice, and those who lost their lives, those students, young students who lost their lives, I'd like to see that justice is done. So their parents, their mothers, their fathers, brothers or sisters, whoever are the complainants, they're saying we did not name all these people, because in each one of these cases, there are approximately 300 named accused and about unnamed people 500. Now, as a practitioner, I can tell you these cases will never, never, never see the light of day. And the actual accused will never be brought before books. Again, culture of impunity. Because the names that has been given are absolute spurious. And the post-mortem reports we still don't have. Did they die out of rubber bullets? Because the incident at Rangpur, Abu Said, the post-mortem report says that he didn't die from any bullet. He died from a mysterious injury at the back of his neck.
Yeah.
Yeah? We still, so these are the kind of things that we need to look into. In order, the other allegation, and these are the spurious, nonsensical templates that is used in every murder case, and lawyers, journalists, doctors, human rights activists, children of the martyrs, the intellectual martyrs, they're all being implicated in these cases, and this is the same template that's going around. And the complainants are saying, we didn't name them. So these cases, where is the post-mortem report? How this happened? And the killings against the police, equally, those are also lives that were lost. We also want to see justice there. Just as we want to see the justice in respect to the students. And most of these cases are already ruined And who is going to take that responsibility? Who is going to give compensation for ruining these cases for the students? Because their cases have been ruined by implicating everyone under the sun. And the police cases, we still don't have the right figure. The government is saying 44 or 45 police, and no one believes that. 400 police stations were burned to ashes. On average, if 2 to 3 police officers died in each one of these police thanas, we're talking about more than 1,000. And the signature of the killing is that of gruesome genocide type of killing, which has the signature of the terrorists. The way how they butchered cows and other animals. This is how the human bodies were butchered. They were hung upside down from bridges. It's so gruesome. I mean, some of these reels came to me. I just couldn't see it. And these murders are not going to be tried. There's an indemnity. Why? How? And this is a culture of indemnity that this government is perpetrating. These murders will not be tried. And an officer on duty in the country where I am at the moment, if a police, or even the country where you are at, any civilized society, civilized country, when a police officer dies in his duty by the mob, that's not going to be tried. What are you talking about? It's absurd. So this mob vigilante is being given a kind of an impunity and an encouragement to do that. And what is the consequence of that? They're going around in various offices. They're saying that, well, we're going to pass without exams. They've gone to the Supreme Court. The security of tenure is a principle that every civilized nation adheres by, security of tenure of judges. They're going around threatening and intimidating judges that they have to give their signature and resign right now. They've done that with teachers and professors of universities, colleges, and schools, insulting them. And the government is not only turning a blind eye, but giving them impunity and encouragement. Please, clapping, go ahead and do more. Do our bidding. Yes, because there's not any legal action or no law and order, but also there's no rhetoric from the government condemning this mob vigilante violence. And who are these students? Most of the students are no longer with these people. We know out of the facilitators, the Shawanoi carriers, they call themselves. Raihan will give the figures. More than two-thirds are Shibir activists. They have masked their true identity. And Shibir, according to a UN...
138.
Yes, and the Shibir, according to European think tanks, is the world's third largest armed cadre organization outside legitimate government arms organization. So they're already linked to terrorism. So this is what is gripping the country at the moment. And the government is not only not enforcing the law, but it seems that this culture of impunity is taken to the next level and almost encouraging these people to do their bidding. And this, if you like, is a culture of impunity. As I said, it started from 1972-3 onward, and now we have the third indemnity that's been given. So that's, I believe, is one of the main reasons, culture of impunity. And along with that, what we are finding is radical Islam that is imported to Bangladesh. That is not the Islam we grew up with. We are not new Muslims. Our mothers, aunts, grandmothers, knew how to read the Quran directly themselves. So these so-called people don't have to come and teach us what Islam is or what the Quran says. We do not see or understand Islam as being establishing an Islamic state. In fact, we understand the way how we understand Islam is that it's inherently secular. And I draw my strength, and I speak here with some authority, of the Medina Charter itself. Medina Charter, some jurists believe, is the first semblance, a fledgling instrument of nation state. This was before nation state. So when Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, when he went to Medina, there was a common pact between the inhabitants of Medina, which included Muslims, non-Muslims, Zoroastrians, Jews, um, non-believers, atheists, and they had a common pact
Yes,
to
thank you,
cohabit.
thank you so much, Taniapa. We will continue this discussion, maybe
Let me
another
just
session. No, no,
I will just conclude. I'll just finish
yeah,
this.
please do.
In this Medina Charter, Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, after his name, Hazrat Ali wrote Prophet of Allah, and he took the pen and crossed it out. He said, I'm not signing this pact as Prophet of Allah, but this is a pact that we are signing as different communities coming together as co-equal. So Medina was never governed based on divine law. And a Quran is not a law book. It's a guidebook for entire humanity, not just Muslims.
True.
So Islam is inherently secular. We understand Islam for the Sufis, the saints, and they also have been attacked. The dargahs, the shrine, along with the Hindus,
Yeah, Majar.
along with the Hindus, the mazars, churches, and the Chinmoy Dash.
Chinmoy
Again, yes, the case is Rashtrudrohi, treason. And I
Yeah.
link it to the first part of my submission here. So that section of the penal code is ultra virus to the constitution. And I filed that case and I won that case almost a decade ago because what we argued, and this is interesting for your viewers, is that that section of treason says that nothing can be said against the government of the day. And this is a British law. And during the British time, there was no distinction between the state and the government. It was one and the same thing. Just as during a time of the monarchy, the monarch was the state. So anything against the monarch is against the state because everything belonged to the monarch. Both the civil, military, bureaucracy were working for the interest of the monarch. But now we have made a transition to a nation state where the republic belongs to the people. And criticizing government is one of the fundamental rights guaranteed in the Constitution. Yeah, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. So this is to say anything against the government can never be treason anymore. It's ultra virus to the Constitution. So that section under which he has been charged is a non-est. It doesn't exist in the eye of law. And even if this case was filed by a BNP activist who has been sacked by BNP, I understand, but it begs the question, why did the state arrest him? Why did the government arrest him? And once he's been arrested, he was brought to the court. It begs another question. Why wasn't he released? Because there is, it's against the government. To say something against the government cannot be treason. Yeah, it has to be against. So, for example, treason would be, we are seeing ISIS flags. People are moving around and chanting in foreign language with ISIS flag. That is treason. The Hizb ut-Tahrir constitution, which wants to overthrow the constitution of the republic, that is treason. But again, we are seeing impunity by the government of the day and doing nothing about it. And lastly, the lawyers were not present in the court. The judge himself could have taken cognizance of the situation, and he didn't need to be sent back for further incarceration because there's no lawyer. If there's no lawyer, the state is supposed to provide a lawyer.
Exactly.
Okay? So there was no argument about the merit of the case. You don't really need lawyers for that. The court itself could have done it. So what we are saying is a comedy of errors, one tier after another. And the question is it really by accident or is it by design?
By design, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tanyapa. It was a great discussion. We will do continue this in next session, maybe next Saturday or Sunday. We will. I think this will educate so many people and sharing knowledge that I don't know, and some of the viewers may have a lot of question. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to grasp their question and ask you all. So, but anyway, we will keep continuing this discussion in further next meeting. Thank you, my wholehearted thank you to Tanyapa and Raihan Rashid, Dr. Raihan Rashid.
Thank
Uh,
you.
and thank you. And we wish our Bangladesh come back to its own secular face. And we also have to fight for it. We have to fight so many different ways and so many platforms. We need to work on it hardly and hard way. So thinking wise and legality issues, lots of issues here that we can do perform from the abroad. And thank you again. Joy Bangla, Joy
Thank
Bangabandhu.
you, Vipul. Joy Bangla, and greetings to everyone, all
Thank
your
you.
Yeah, Bangla.
viewers. Thank
Joy
you.
Bangla. Joy Bangla.
Good night.
Good night.